Hey guys, and this is going to be my fantasy booking for TNA's Victory Road 2010 pay-per-view, which is this Sunday. Kind of going to be fantasy booking slash predictions because I'm going to go through every match and I'm going to kind of comment on how I would do it, and then how I think the company is going to do it, and kind of just general thoughts on how the storyline is going. So it's not really fully fantasy booking. It's kind of like a combination of fantasy booking, predictions, and general thoughts all combined into one. So there is that. Victory Road 2010. Start this off with Kurt Angle against D'Angelo Dinero. This is a very easy one to book. You just have them go out there and have a great competitive match. And Kurt Angle wins with effort after a good 15-20 minutes. Maybe not as far as 20 minutes, but a good 15 minutes at least. And I don't think anyone would be suggesting that Angle's rise to the top of the top 10 contenders should end at this point. I mean, he's only at number 8 so far, so I wouldn't have him lose. I don't think the company's going to have him lose. And will it go all the way up to Bound for Glory? I think it actually will, to be honest, because I think that this is the kind of lasting impression that Angle wants to leave, because I think he's about to retire. So he wants the last thing he does to be going out there and having great matches with everyone he can, and then maybe one last title reign to kind of leave the best final memories he can. So I don't really have a problem with it. I mean, if you think about it, if he goes all the way to Bound for Glory having great matches, no one will mind that he's in there with RVD, even if he is a kind of a veteran, considered to be a veteran. Even if he wins, I don't think anyone would mind, as long as it's a great match. So there is that. I think that as far as Victory Road goes, as far as right now, no way Kurt Angle is losing this one, both in my fantasy booking and in my mind of what TNA will do. So there is that. Next we go to Madison Rayne against Angelina Love. This feud has been decent for a Knockouts feud. I haven't really, I've actually enjoyed it a little bit, so it's been okay. Angelina's good in the ring, and Rayne is passable, I think. I can see two equal viable directions going from here. Either you can have Rayne retain and then do a hardcore match at Hard Justice, because they kind of teased on the last Impact Angelina getting a bit aggressive with Madison with a chair, so you can have the hardcore match at the hardcore pay-per-view, and have that make sense. Or you can have Angelina win. If this were me, I would have Angelina win and then have Sarita attack her, setting up the next program between Angelina and Sarita. They can have a hardcore match at Hard Justice, because when Sarita turned heel, they made it in a violent way. When she turned on Taylor Wilde, she was very violent, so it makes sense to have a hardcore match. And then after the hardcore match, you can have them have good athletic matches, which they are both capable of doing. That's not what I think is going to happen, though, because I think that TNA wants to keep Madison Rayne at the forefront of things and kind of keep the beautiful people relevant. That's what they've shown signs of wanting to do since the start of the year. So if it were me, I'd kind of push Madison to the background and have Angelina against Sarita, which I think would be a better feud all around. But don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think they're going to have Madison fade into the background. I think they're going to keep her important. So there is that. Next we go to Douglas Williams against Brian Kendricks in the Ultimate Submission match for the X Division Championship. This is gimmicky, but it does make sense, which is more than you can ask from a lot of TNA gimmick matches. It actually does make sense in the context of a storyline. Both men have kind of excelled outside their comfort zone in the weeks leading up to this. You know, Brian Kendricks has won by submission a few matches on Impact. Doug Williams, he retained the title at Slammiversary with a high flying move. So they kind of both excelled outside of their comfort zone. But I think in this case you have Williams retain, and then they go on to have a hardcore match at Hard Justice, and that is a match that is outside both their comfort zones. So whoever wins that match will look very credible and will look probably a lot more impressive than whoever wins this match. So that is why I think that Brian Kendrick should win at Hard Justice and not here. So that's kind of my stance on that. I think that Williams retains here, and then he goes on to drop the title to Kendricks at Hard Justice. Because Kendricks does deserve at least one short X Division title reign out of this feud. I don't know how strong they want to push him, but he does deserve at least one reign. So there is that. Matt Morgan against Hernandez in the Steel Cage. I want this feud to end. It's as simple as that. So because I like Matt Morgan normally, but this feud has not been fun, I don't think, anyway. They can end this here, and then they can go on to have Joe versus Morgan, which they have hinted at for a while now. That could be decent. I think I kind of really want to see how they work together, because I don't really know how that will work out, but I think it could be decent if it's done right. As far as this match goes, I think because it's a feud ender, that Hernandez has to win, because there was a no finish at Slammiversary, and the cleanest way to do this to end the feud is to have the babyface win. So you know, it's a steel cage, so he can go over the cage, and it wouldn't really hurt Morgan that much. Because I do want to, like, I don't mind Hernandez, but I don't like him as much as I used to. Since he came back, he's been kind of dull and uninteresting. So there is that. I don't know if they're going to actually have the feud end here, but that's what I would do. So there is that. Ric Flair versus Jay Lethal. I've liked Lethal's push up to now, but it's had one major flaw, and that is it's lacking in character development for the guy. You know, they've had him imitate Flair, which has been good for what it was, but it's not going to get him too far. It'll get him so far, but not far enough as they want him to be, because they're having him win all these matches. They clearly want him to be a guy for the future, but you know, if you just have him imitate guys, it's not going to get that far. However, now they've taken it on a turn for the better, because they've had Flair and AJ attack Lethal's brother. That takes Lethal to the next level of his character, because he's no longer a fun-loving face that's imitating Flair. He's a serious face who has a mission and is hell-bent on getting revenge. And that, to me, is what Lethal needs at this point. He needs something. He needs a more concrete motivation than just imitating Flair, and that's exactly what they gave him. So props to TNA for doing that. So as far as this match goes, there's no excuse for Flair winning, definitely not. But I want to see Lethal be more aggressive in this match, kind of highlight the fact that he's no longer a fun-loving face. He's they're kind of starting to develop the character that is Jay Lethal, which I've been dying for them to do since they started Lethal's push. So there is that. As far as when Flair does lose cleanly, which I think he should do, I think that Flair losing cleanly might be the last straw for AJ, because you know he's been taking Flair's criticisms for ages now. But now that Flair is losing to a young guy like Lethal, that might kind of open AJ's eyes to the fact that Flair's not all that, and he's not the guy who's going to take AJ into the future. And that might be the last straw, and AJ might turn face again. So there is that. That's kind of what I would do, because I think that AJ is a better face than he is a heel. So that's how I would do it. Hope this is good. I hope that they do this right, because they've just started to get Lethal's push completely right. Hopefully it continues in a good way. Motor City Machine Guns against Beer Money. Distancing Beer Money from the Fortune stable is a good thing. Let me just say that right off the bat. Since Flair started kind of recruiting guys to be his muscle, Beer Money have been the muscle of the stable, and that means that they are the guys that you care the least about. So I want the feud to continue, so that Beer Money can continue to be separated from Flair and the Fortune stable, and the only way to do that is to have Beer Money win. Yeah. So at this point, you know, they've waited so long to put the titles on the Guns that it doesn't really matter when they win, because the best thing that they can do for the Guns at this point is to have them have a good title reign. So for me, I'd have Beer Money win and have the feud continue, and then somewhere down the line have the Guns win and then give them a great title reign. So there is that. I know some people want the Guns to win here. I think that TNA might put the titles on the Guns at this point, but that's what I would do personally. So there is that. And then we go on to the main event: Rob Van Dam against Anderson, against Abyss, against Jeff Hardy, 4-way for the title. To me, RVD retains this, and then goes on to have a feud with Kurt Angle leading up to Bound for Glory, like I talked about earlier. And then you have Abyss versus Anderson, which is kind of like a feud in itself, and then you have that develop into its own. Because this, to me, I was actually interested in this at the end of Impact last week, because they had Anderson hint that he's turning ruthless again, turning heel again. To me, the best way to do this, a Abyss Anderson feud, would be to have Anderson bring back his ruthless side in order to combat the threat from Abyss and from the ECW invaders, who I guess are on Abyss's side. To that end, you have all the faces who are warily trusting Anderson up to this point. They lose their trust for him completely because they've seen him, you know, turn ruthless again. But the only reason Anderson is turning ruthless again is because that's what you need to do to fight off this threat. Because TNA aren't succeeding by like diplomatic methods. So Anderson invokes the inner heel he has to combat that threat, and to that end, everyone stops trusting him, and everyone takes away their support for him. So he's kind of combating the threat all by himself, because TNA are failing, but he is succeeding, and he's succeeding by himself. So even though the ECW guys are old and decrepit and not exactly credible challengers, the fact that he is facing them all by himself is probably the best way to make him look strong, make him look triumphant, and kind of really cement his face turn for the future, because I do think that that is the best route for him, because he can be the Steve Austin like aggressive face with the edgy baby face. So that's how I would do that. Will that be what actually happens? I'm not sure, because they actually had a tease at the last Impact at the end, but it really is kind of up in the air. I think that they might have a best win here. I hope that doesn't happen, but I think it could happen. So there is that. I would have already win, retain, go on to face Angle, and then Abyss and Anderson feud, like I just described there. So that's the end of my TNA fantasy booking. I'm out. Later.